Here we go. Recording in progress. So I wanted to welcome everybody um, to the Labor Notes brainstorming session, which which is happening after Notes is already included, after everybody has had a day and a half to rest and recuperate from Labor Notes and the parties that that happen every day. So hopefully everybody here took extensive notes and didn't get too hungover. And so yeah, we'll start with um, with Thursday Thursday's festivities and workshops. And so I want to call on and give Simone a chance to talk about Thursday first. And then after Simone is done, talking about what they did Thursday, what they remember, what they can recall, it'll be the next person's turn. Go ahead, Simone.
I was just gonna say that I didn't catch the conferences either. But that I sort of was doing that thing like where I was trying to network and I'm just like, hi, who are you? To like anybody with a badge. And everyone was like, I'm jet lagged. Who are you? Like, and I was just like, okay, like I'll see you tomorrow was my experience for Thursday for the most part. So because I didn't have to travel, I just drove there.
I feel you, and that's all right because I didn't get to make it either for Thursdays. Of course, I did have to travel. I was actually planning on meeting up with Simone when I got there, but because of the bus delay and all that stuff, just missed out on my opportunity to eat lunch with a great comrade. Um, and so maybe a little bit of your background, Simone. What do you do? And what kind of shops are you organizing?
Can I go next? Can you skip me for a second?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so
thank you.
who's willing to go next? Talk about Thursday. You can just unmute yourself and start talking. Nobody for Thursday? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Friday. Um, who wants it first?
Do you just want us to talk about the sessions we went to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Friday I tried to go to everything, which is kind of a mistake. But Friday I went to Know Your Rights, Union Members, Free Speech in Palestine, and sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. They talked a lot about solidarity, BDS, which is the boycott movement that they have going on, and that one was more of a get to know people that might help you out thing, and make sure you understand your laws if you're going to be talking about something political or polarized. And they talked about the NLRA Act. And yeah, that's all I have on that one. And I also did an injury to one bargainizing for marginalized members, which again, my organization is worldwide. So we have a lot of minorities and marginalized people that we're trying to protect. So that one was really good solidarity, just talking about basically how you get other people to care when the issue doesn't apply to them, it was really good thought-provoking conversation, because now I know Like if I'm trying to fight for LGBTQ plus rights, I don't have to find all the LGBTQ plus people. I can, like basically show people the issue in a way that they can relate to it, whether they care about people in that community or the laws that we're trying to pass will help people outside of that community. Like, LGBTQ and women's rights kind of go together a lot when we're talking about hormone replacement and stuff like that. So you can get people outside of your organization or outside of your cause to help you. And you can reach out to other caucuses when you're talking about unions that might align with, like, hey, you guys help us with this and we'll help you with your thing, which was, and I don't know, it's just the creative thinking outside the box. I really appreciated that insight. And that's all I got.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say welcome back to Angela Brooks. So we are in the middle of talking about Friday. And so I will go next. I just wanted to give somebody else a chance to go first. And so Friday, got my notes and everything. Um, First, I went to the Taking on Goliath workshop, which is very close to home because I am a former Amazon organizer. Um, I was a leader in the first Kentucky campaign, so the one in a small town called Campbellsville that has been an Amazon company town since about 1999 when when the previous largest employer, Fruit of the Loom, had left our town and left it decimated to poverty. And then Amazon moved in, and the county and the state rolled out the red carpet for them. And they used our people as guinea pigs in their very experimental fulfillment center model. And so um, I was a young 21-year-old employee who was burnt out from my last job because we were the first to get laid off March 2020 when everybody was getting laid off from the pandemic. Toyota shut down their production in Kentucky, and so we had nobody to make parts for. So they laid us off. And then when they brought us back to work, um, of course, there were a lot of things that opened my eyes at that time, right? You had George Floyd getting murdered by the state. You had Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, getting murdered by the state, all right, by this racist system. Um, and so you had all of the protests around that going on. And then you had the state failing people. Like in Kentucky, the unemployment system was not working. People were not getting their unemployment checks because the system was just supposedly overloaded and not prepared for the influx of millions of workers. And so I didn't get my unemployment until I got back to work. Um, and when I did get back to work, I found out about something that Toyota Gosai had did. Um, it's a Toyota subsidiary. They're like a sister company to Toyota. They're pretty much just as old as they are. They have the original founder's name, which is spelled with V-A instead of Toyota. Um, yeah, a lot of history there. But anyway, they got caught in a price fixing scandal from my department. From my department. They were collaborating on this price fixing scandal with Hitachi Metals. Um, and that is why they started making us work so much goddamn overtime. They worked us 6 hours a day for 12 hours those days, and 8 hours on Sunday for half a year in this hot auto parts factory where we were around ovens all night and we got nothing extra for it except for the standard um, time and a half and then double time on Sundays. It's a Kentucky requirement that if you work a seventh day of the week, you should get paid twice your normal rate of pay. That is a law that is under siege along with our lunch breaks. They tried to outlaw it in their legislative session with a Republican supermajority at the beginning of this year. And so I was this young worker, and then I got burnout. I had to quit, and I got a job at Amazon. Hey, I thought it was going to be much better because they have progressive optics. And boy, was I wrong. What I saw in early 2021 was the labor movement popping off. And it popped off with Amazon workers with that initial walkout over Amazon employees dying because the company was not providing personal protective equipment. It started out with that original walkout where Chris Smalls, Derek Palmer, and several others got fired, and they formed the Congress of Essential Workers. It's a nonprofit that they formed that is still around to this day. It predates the Amazon Labor Union, and so yeah, I was looking at that. I was looking at all of this, and I was finding out about everything that Amazon was doing, all the class action lawsuits against them. Class action lawsuits by temporary workers. I got hired as a temporary worker. So that already affected me, thinking I was getting my wages stolen from the get-go. And so I looked at it. I looked at the labor movement. I was inspired. I was like, hey, this it challenged my worldview, of course, because I still had a lot of reactionary views, even though I was like sort of a black bloc anarchist at that time. And so I saw Amazon for what they really were, and I saw this new pragmatic method that historically in Kentucky, that's one of the places where the union struggle was at its finest, at its bloodiest. Where that song "Which Side Are You On" originated in Harlan County, USA. Harlan County, where the coal miners had to wage wars against the bosses and the local government and the national government. That's where the term redneck comes from. These communist coal miners, right? They were armed and funded by the Communist Party. And so that whole history, I figured out it was hidden from me. And yeah, I was inspired to join the labor movement. And I was like, well, let me have a look around me. There's no unions around here. There's no resources around here if you do want to start getting unionized. The closest resources for unions around here are in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky is a union town. We got the biggest Teamsters presence of anywhere. And those Teamsters, they're scattered throughout the DSA, through all the local socialist organizations. And still, that influence doesn't really get out of the cities as much as it should, right? We can all agree that city folks keep a lot of these resources to themselves and don't really share with the folks that are out here. Progressives abandoned Appalachia a long time ago. The radicals stayed and fight. That's how it is. We're closer to socialist red than we are Democrat blue. And so I had to figure out what the hell I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this, because I'm the only one, as far as I knew, I was the only one who had the ideal to organize this Amazon warehouse. So I done joined up with the IWW, and that's when I became a wobbly. They started giving me the mentorship and the training and the strategizing that I need, turned me into an anarcho-syndicalist. And I was a wobbly up until recently when I lapsed on membership dues. But I'm still a wobbly in spirit. Welcome back, Simone. I was just going on about my experience and how the Amazon versus Goliath was the first workshop that I attended on Friday. And so where was I? I was just going on about how personal the struggle is to me because I was an Amazon workplace leader. And, my story has been publicized, so I won't go too on about that. There's so many resources out there to see it. Um, and so, yeah, anyway, going on to the Amazon versus Goliath workshop. Um, there were Amazon organizers of all calibers from all of the different active campaigns. So, we want Amazon workers are leading by example. That's what it is, because we are militant, and typically the Amazon struggle, before there was a union, Amazon labor union, there were little militant committees darted all throughout the countries. They call themselves Amazonians United. And one thing I found out early into our organizing and all of my research about the organizing, is that Amazonians United, they won us the better working conditions that we had at the time that I worked for Amazon, because they went with the IWW radical model of forming militant committees and doing strike action. And that's what inspired Amazon labor history. There were a couple of union campaigns that failed. One with the CWA, one with the machinists who tried to organize maintenance workers in about 2006, something like that. But the militants caught on, and so the Amazon labor union was mentored by the militants, by the Amazonians United cadres, by those comrades. And so, of course, there were some speakers from Amazonians United who demonstrated that when it comes to labor militancy, the Amazon struggle leads by example. At the KCVG warehouse, that is the current Kentucky campaign, there are more than 1,000 workers who have signed their union card. More than 1,000. And most of them are immigrants, because Northern Kentucky, it has the second largest Congolese population in the U.S. And so what the union has done is, from the get-go, these cadres were Socialist Alternative members. Socialist Alternative actually had some of the leaders in this campaign back during the organizing at JFK 8, the first unionized Amazon warehouse. They salted that warehouse. All right, just like the Amazon campaign had so many salts, and that's part of the reason it was so successful. Nobody did it alone, and even some of the most prominent members today, like Justine Medina, are salts. She was a salt from the Young Communist League. Salts from all over, right? I think y'all get it. And so the KCVG campaign, one of the biggest things they fought for is translation services from Amazon. And they won. They won big. Amazon has to translate into every language of its workforce. So Congolese people, they speak French, sort of a French Creole, as it has been described to me. And so even the union, they lead by example. They post all of their materials in every language that their workforce speaks. So that includes Arabic, Spanish, Bosnian, and of course, Congolese French. And that's incredible, right? When do you hear of a union that uplifts folks that much, like in a startup union? And I do want to say that a lot of it was possible because of their collaboration with a socialist party, socialist alternative, who has really put the power in these workers' hands and are trying to start a labor party. That's what Workers Strike Back is. We had cadres from Workers Strike Back at the conference. We had these socialist alternative cadres at the conference, and they are so in tune to labor. I call them the labor trots because, they're Trotskyists, but they actually organize. Instead of just like handing out the newspapers like those guys, those really annoying people did outside of labor notes. And they wrote hit pieces because, I don't know, they were salty because they got ignored. But okay. The next note is that we had the Carolina Amazonians United for Solidarity and Empowerment, who were at the conference. They are part of the North Carolina Revolution, as I would say, because, in North Carolina, you have a lot going on. You have service workers, all of them, so many of them organizing. I mean, they had Waffle House, they had Publix, they had so many places on strike. They had teachers' unions doing these illegal strikes because in North Carolina, public workers cannot legally go on strike. That's one of the few states, just like Tennessee is one of those states too. And you had them there, and they're at a majority black warehouse, right? And they're led by a labor lawyer who is not a labor lawyer but a labor organizer who is named Reverend Ryan Brown. And when I say Reverend, he is at a Southern Baptist black church, and you want to listen to this man talk because it's like a fiery sermon. It really is. Um, he's such a motivating and inspirational figure. Um, Reverend Ryan Brown, the first time that I got to talk to him, his first piece of organizing advice was to find black church ladies to organize. And, you know, he had such a great point because marginalized communities, they're a lot less individualistic and they have always struggled. If you look at labor history, you're looking at black history, right? And union density among black folks is greater than it is among white folks. It is. It's just the fact that it has always been greater union density among black workers. And it is a shame that black history is not documented as thoroughly in labor history. It is often excluded from being labor history, especially the more intersectional it gets, such as black queer workers, black women workers who were labor leadership. And I was glad to see such a representation of black comrades in the labor struggle. There were a lot of workshops talking about the black labor struggle, especially in the South. Um, and of course, their campaign in North Carolina, the Amazon campaign, they're even more scrappy than ours was because they have been rejected by so many unions. Unions wouldn't even help them pay for their trip to labor notes. They got rejected so hard, and you gotta know it is because they're black, and it is because they're militant, because they're willing.
I would interject there, and I would say that more often than not, like exclusionary practices within labor organizing, if I may, are due to the consolidated power structure that's already existing, and that's what we're trying to break down here. Like that never should have happened because of, like you're saying, because of labor history, because that we all were, all of us, right? All of us, all of the working class was always in the struggle together, always. And they separated us on purpose. And we're just, that was the wrong thing. And like, so that's what we're trying to break down here. You know what I mean? So like, that's what I think ultimately conventions such as labor notes or organizations such as Labor for Palestine, especially organizations such as Labor for Palestine, are really just focused on the unity you know, because that's the important part, is moving forward, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say that black workers, they're going to take their labor power back with or without our support and our aid as
We are
white
all
folks.
going to take our power back. We are all taking our power back. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we are taking it back for each other, and we are taking it back for ourselves. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Absolutely. Definitely. What was the yeah, what was the workshop that you said that you had attended with Amazon?
It
Um
was the
Amazon
David
versus Goliath.
it was the David versus Goliath workshop that
Very cool.
was Friday morning.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, everybody that was there, um, the corrupt leadership of the Amazon labor union, they did not bother to show their faces because they are getting voted out very soon. All right, Chris Smalls, the unelected president, the unelected executives, they're gone as soon as May. All right, the reform movement is taking over, finally, because they did so much damage to the Amazon labor movement by rejecting NLRB petitions, by abandoning campaigns, by Chris Smalls and Derek Palmer throwing haymakers at a worker who just dared to criticize their leadership. Yeah, they did that. And Derek Palmer was found out to be a domestic abuser. He was formally charged with domestic abuse and had to step down from being the union's vice president. And that's how Michelle Valentin Nuevas got into the vice presidency of the Amazon labor union. So good riddance. And everybody there was a reformer because we had to fight against the corruption of our own union and we had to fight against the company. From the get-go, it was a war on two fronts, right? It's like so many grassroots unions, like so many unions of today, and so many people at Labor Notes who, of course, are militant reformers. Um, And of course, Carolina Amazonians United for Empowerment, the ones I was talking about, they actually rejected the ALU because they took a look at the constitution of the Amazon Labor Union. They took a look at everything and what was going on and how the union was being run, and they're like, "No, we don't want to be a part of this because we are a democratic union that empowers people to speak up. It's in the name. Carolina Amazonians United for Solidarity and Empowerment." And so they rejected joining them. They also rejected joining the Teamsters for the same reason, because even though Teamsters for a Democratic Union is there, a lot of those changes just haven't been made, and a lot of workers felt screwed over by the UPS contract. That's why there's another reform caucus called Teamsters Mobilize. They're very good and very radical communist cadres. And so, one of the big notes is that if the United States is an empire, which they are, then Amazon is the Death Star. Amazon is the Death Star because of how they've been monopolizing everything since their inception, right? And how they've been just destroying workers' rights. They've been the bulwark of destroying workers' rights. And that was one really good note, one really good part of someone's speech. Um, how to help immigrants in your union campaign? Well, you have to make them feel seen and heard. You have to fight for their rights for translation services. And just like getting black workers on your side, getting other marginalized workers on their side, you can't expect them to show up for you if you don't show up for them and what they care about, because we're not doing class reductionism anymore. We're not doing that. You have to actively care about everybody's struggle and you have to actually participate in that. We're not doing this white mayonnaise Marxism type of unionism, right? We are at the forefront of fighting for everybody's liberation. And people who don't like it, they're going to be remembered. They're going to be remembered, and they'll be tolerated for now. But when the young intersectional workers take over the unions, they will be ousted. All right. Something that's called the Sisyphus problem in Amazon. It's like the roller coaster ride of momentum, right? Because at Amazon, because of the corruption in the Amazon labor movement, labor union, I should say, the momentum has hit its lowest, right? But the Reform Caucus, the Reform movement, is making the momentum in waves again. Amazon Teamsters is making it go in waves, and the Teamsters are going to be prepared for Amazon workers. These young intersectional Amazon workers are the ones who are the drivers and the warehouse workers, and they're coming for the Teamsters too. Once we get there, because Amazon labor union in Kentucky, that chapter, they're most likely going to affiliate with the Teamsters. They announced that at their at their workshops, at their respective workshops that they were within. So these KCVG Amazon workers at this $1.5 billion air hub in northern Kentucky, they're socialists. And these socialists, they're going to change the Teamsters. They're coming for a piece of that. They're coming.
I
So,
love that. What other workshops did you attend on Friday?
I haven't really finished with this one yet. One of the Carolina workers who is the founder of that movement, her name is Mary Hill. She is a cancer survivor. She still has cancer. She's had cancer this whole time. And if you can, go over to the Carolina Amazonians website and support Mary Hill, because she's the co-founder of that movement along with Reverend Ryan Brown. She is a badass. And there was even a song about her that was played at another one of our workshops that was Saturday. Mary Hill is a freedom fighter. It goes something like that. And God, it was awesome. Somebody has to have the footage. But the lyrics should be available sometime soon. And it was an older black woman from a musicians guild, from a musicians union based in the South. And at Amazon, you must contest management for everything, no matter how little it is. I had this in my own experience because part of our strategy for getting in touch with workers, because you are penalized so heavily for things such as not scanning items as fast as you should be and for accumulating time off task. I joined the volunteer safety committee. On the safety committee, I interviewed workers, sort of walked around on the shop floor for a couple hours every night, and I talked to workers about what their grievances were. I was engaging in protected concerted activities on the clock. I was doing that. Workers eventually became trustworthy of me with their issues. That is how we formulated our common demands, and workers saw that I was fighting for every grievance that they had before we had any type of union. I was the shop steward in the workplace without even being an ordained, certified, bona fide shop steward, right? And that's one example. You have to take the grievances to the boss. It doesn't matter how small of an issue you think it is. You need to survey every worker and see what they need on the shop floor, what they want to achieve. All right. And that's the model for Amazon organizing all around the country, is that militant struggle, providing for your coworkers' needs through mutual aid, through mutual understanding. Just like what Chris Smalls and those original workers were doing in the beginning. They were sitting outside of a public bus stop every day for 2 years, feeding workers, asking them what they needed, and providing for those needs. They were hosting these barbecues, these potluck dinners. That's what a union is. That's what a union is. And we should have had some kind of workshop about community and mutual aid as the foundation of union organizing. Because that's what it is. Just like back in the day when they were hosting babysitters clubs, when they were forming little workers' cooperatives, doing essentially what the Black Panthers would go on to do later, right? That's what a union is. That's what a union should do. Any union that is not organizing in a mutual aid, prioritizing fashion doesn't deserve to call themselves a union. That's just my take on it. And that's most Amazon workers' take on it. That's most young people's take on it because a contract is a pipe dream. It is a pipe dream. You have to be high if you think you're going to get a contract anytime soon. So you got to have something to look forward to, something to keep you going, and that has to be providing for each other's needs through solidarity funds, through accumulating resources for your workers. And so that concludes with my notes on the Amazon on the Amazon workshop that I attended Friday. Who wants to go next? What workshop did you attend?
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through good on my end.
Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself. I was cutting it out. First of all, my name is Angela Brooks. I am a shop steward and a spur out of UFCW Local 7070 out of Los Angeles. The workshop I did attend and is right up my alley is to open up bargaining, considering that CVS are gearing up for the talks for the bargaining. And another one I did also attend was I think the health and safety one, which is also up my alley. And the reason being I say those two is because the first one, open up bargaining, just found out we got a meeting with my local on the 3rd of May. So that was perfect timing for me to attend that opening bargaining. And it gives me the do's and don'ts of opening bargaining talks. I have a lot on my notes that I will be, as far as my store, my customers for one, because those are the ones that see and understand firsthand of what's going on in your store or throughout. So I will keep that in mind as far as my customers go, because most of them, first of all, they knew that I was attending this conference. And they did say anybody who can represent the customers, it will be you are the perfect fit, and they chose the perfect fit. So I said okay. And keeping that in mind, I did put them in consideration because they're the ones that the reason why our store is still open. The Rite Aid down the street did close down, not too far from where I work. So a lot of those customers are coming over to where I'm at, and those customers were frustrated for one because they couldn't get their medications on time. Some of the doctors did, transfer their medications over to our CVS, and they did not have no indication until either they called their doctor or they did transfer it over. And, as backed up as the law was for when they was getting the prescriptions, it was a lot. It was a lot in that time frame. And I've gotten calls because mainly I'm in the front end and there's pharmacy. So I've gotten calls from the pharmacy that, people are calling to say, well, I've been on hold for 30 minutes, been on hold for 45 minutes. I've been on hold for this, and that. Also, let me remind you, I also am a shift supervisor at my store. So in this scenario, I have to play the management, also got to be the devil's advocate and play a shop steward as well for my colleagues, just in case there's, an issue. So in this case, I have to put on my management hat on this side, because I have to go over there, let them know, like, hey, you guys got customers, that's dealing, need their medicine, what's going on. At the same time, I have to play, on the side with my colleagues, because the colleagues, they're doing as best they can. They're already short staffed. They only can do so much. So a lot of these patients, they understood, and there's a lot that didn't understand, and they were so in demanding, so it was a lot of confusion going on by that time frame. A lot of them was threatening to take their, prescriptions out of there, even the regular customers that come in. And it was a way, I explained to them, what the situation was, and kind of like alleviate the situation to where they don't take their sales, or they take their, their prescriptions to a third party or to a mom and pop, pharmacy or anywhere else, because they love shopping there. A lot of them shopping in my store for like years. That store's been around for years, and a lot of them, they don't want, especially a lot of them don't want to go nowhere else. And a lot of the ones that do come to my store are a little bit, up in age. So of course they don't like change. They don't, if what they say, if it's broke, don't fix it. So another issue dealing with, is management ethical problems. So I see a lot of, which I did mention this on Saturday at my union meetup, a local 77 UFCW meetup. And I did mention this. I said, that's another thing I'm going to bring to the table when we go into this opening bargaining. Management has to get better. They have to get better at communicating. They have to get better at understanding that we're not robots at any shape or form. We only got two hands, two legs, 2 feet, 10 toes, 10 hands. We only can do so much. If we're short staffed, please understand that we're doing the best we can. We can't just work this and work this and work that and do this and do everything at the same time. Then, like I said, I'm in the front end. So I'm dealing with trying to make sure, let's say, for instance, load gets done, or trying to get a photo order done, and it's only one body trying to take care of a customer. And then you have your account manager in your ear, screaming in your ear, telling you to hurry up with the customers. How can you tell me to hurry up with the customers in line when I have people that's up in age? If I'm hurrying up and rushing them, that's like telling them they're not important. So do you have, in a sense, I was like really to the point where I was going to tell my manager, do you have an older parent? Do you have an older, relative? You know what I'm saying? A lot of them are still dealing with a piece of paper. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are not up with the times. You know what I mean? And some of them, they are up with the times, but they only can keep up with so much. So please be mindful of those customers. I told her, please be mindful of those customers as well. So basically, another opening bargaining issue I want to bring is like at least have 2 people up in the front. Letting them, at least have one person helping out with the lines, with photos, passport photos, whatever you want to call it. And then the other other person can help out with, people that's more higher priority, or people that's, with the register. Instead of having one person, you're stringing at one person, and then don't understand why the person's taking too long to get to the next customer. Another issue, and which brings me back to what I just mentioned, health and safety. There are some stores, mine's included, they're dealing with safety issues as far as security. My store does not have security at all. It was taken away, which means there are more high theft stealing. There are more opportunists out there, if you get what I'm saying, that will come. They'll scope out the store. They'll see who's basically in the front. And let me just remind you guys, September 27th of last year, I was a victim of a crime. I was a victim of a robbery. So this is why I had to go to that open bargaining. So I have to think about myself. I have to think about my colleagues, which also happened to them. I have to think about the community, because they, like I said, they witnessed firsthand, a couple of them witnessed firsthand as to what happened to me. So from that time frame, it really sparked the fire in me. And I've also, mentioned to my union reps, I said, whatever meetings you guys have as far as contract talks for CVS, I want to be that first one in line, because this is getting too much. This is getting too much, and enough is enough. When you tire and enough is enough, enough is enough. And seeing that it was a physical thing and also was a psychological as well. So it kind of, I'm still dealing with the aspects of, who's a regular customer, who I know. I have to keep my head on the swivel at all times, especially because I'm closer to the door. So I have to always keep alert, and especially when I'm counting money or dealing with money. And that's another struggle I'm dealing with, especially at night when you have two people working at night, closing at night, and one's got to go back to the back, dealing with money, while you have your other colleague, you're afraid that something's going to happen and you don't have security in your store. I have to, like I said, being in management, I have to be responsible for the whole store. At the same time, I got to look out for my colleagues, especially after pharmacy closes, because our pharmacy gets busy. After pharmacy closes, it slows down. So it's two of us. And I'm probably ain't gonna tell who's coming through that door. So I have to be on the lookout. And that's another thing with management. I see somebody who also worked in Walmart. So I don't know if it's the same thing with Walmart or any retail that you go into, but mine's is just like that. And CVS is a multi-billion, I'm gonna say trillion-dollar company, and you guys, they got to do better. They have to do better. How do you not have security in the store? What do you? And then the only thing we have to do is report it on our scanner, indicating. So you want me to? So if something happens, you want me to report an injury or somebody getting shot or somebody getting, God forbid, something happens in the store, to where it be, excels something that's beyond my control. You want me to report that in the thing? No, you serious? So tell me we got to fend for ourselves when especially at night, when a lady's working at night closing the store, and then you have another gentleman there too. No, this is crazy. This is crazy. And that's one of the safety issues. Another safety issue I'm dealing with right now. I didn't realize I was off a video. Sorry. Another, so you guys can see my face. Absolutely. I see the comment. Yes. I'll put my number in the chat and my email address. Another thing that I would love to talk about dealing with health and safety issues is dealing with some stuff that's dealing more of ADA and compliance. My elevator's been out for about almost 3 months now. My customers are complaining. They're being complaining.
If I could just interject for a second. This video is being recorded, so you might not want to put your number in the chat.
Okay.
Simone can be found on Facebook.
Okay.
And so yeah, you should probably just DM it to her. Just because I don't know how to edit videos, so
okay,
yeah,
that's fine. Okay, that's thank you though. That's fine. I'm so used to. I tell you, I have so many Zoom calls going on at one time, so I'm like, just put it in the chat. But thank you for that though. But yeah, with that, I dealing with some issues as far as like the elevator and the ceiling at our store, or just in general, different stores, having issues with the floors or the elevator in this case, more facilities issues. Like, how do you expect for customers to come in the store and shop when even with that they don't feel safe because they're afraid either the ceiling's going to come in, or they can't use the elevator, or some of them can't even get up and down the stairs because they're either wheelchair bound or they're limited to what they can do. So those two sessions was very important to me. I know it was a lot. I just wanted to break it down in detail as to why did I go to those two sessions.
I appreciate everything you've said. I appreciate you sharing your story and your struggle, and how the sessions relate to you specifically, because that's always important, right? That we extract that that personal that personal relation to whatever we learn, of course. And you know, as an Amazon worker, as a former Amazon worker, our issue was that we had too much security, and
I really wish that, look, can you spare one to me? Can you spare one to Los Angeles?
yeah, we'll send them all your way.
Yes, please do. I would not look. Hey, if I have to come out the pocket to compensate them and pay them myself, I'll do it. But that ain't how it works. But it's getting to that point. Like, and I know you guys seen the issues that's going on in Los Angeles, let alone California alone, where there's a lot of crime going on, a lot of these smashing grabs, a lot of that going on. So CVS, like I said, they have to do better. They got to do better protecting their employees. You guys are they're $1 billion, $1 trillion company, and you got several stores that have security 24/7 because they're 24-hour stores, and you have some that don't even have none at all, and then there's some they only have like maybe 5, I would say 4 days out the week, which we was one of them that used to have 4 days out the week, and they took that away, and I'm just like, I can't sit around and not be silent anymore. I cannot, especially in a situation where this is, if you think about it, this is personal for me, very personal. So I'm not going to sit around anymore. I'm not going to be quiet anymore.
Absolutely, and my heart goes out to all retail workers. Like, oh God, I being in the labor movement, you gotta talk to everybody you can. You gotta learn from everybody. You gotta learn from people overseas. You gotta just really be deep in the struggle.
Yeah.
And so, I've heard the same story from so many Dollar General workers, so many Walmart workers, because, like, most areas that are like food deserts, the only place they'll have to shop, the only place those residents will have to shop is like a Dollar General.
Yeah.
Um, in rural areas, in inner city areas where there are food deserts, and in so many areas, all they have is that little Dollar General and stuff,
Yeah.
and because that's where the poverty exists, right? The most
Mm-hmm.
poor people are in the areas that are food deserts, and poor people are going to do what it takes to put food on the table,
Yeah.
right? And so I hate to say it, but the public, the general public, is a danger to workers.
Yeah.
And so we got to have protection from that. And the company has exacerbated the problem in two ways. The companies, they keep people poor, and the companies refuse to provide security for their workers. And
Yeah.
so, it's capitalism. It is this system of capitalism and colonialism. Colonialism never ended. The racial caste system is still there. Um, and so we got to bash back against those.
Yeah.
Of course, for colonized people, colonialism is the main enemy. Colonialism is the main enemy, and that has to end. That has to end before we're ever going to end capitalism. And
Mm-hmm.
the sooner people find that out, the better off our movement is. The more radical we can be, the more we can hold space and fight for that decolonization struggle first.
Yeah. Yep.
And of course, we're fighting capitalism and colonialism at the same time, but one has to go before the other. Because we're not going to get this socialist empire where racism and all of these different systems and patriarchy, they're not going to end just because we become socialists, right? You have to struggle for that to end. The United States itself has to not exist anymore. The land has to be given back and divided amongst indigenous and black folks, the people of Turtle Island, right? And white folks should not have a say in that. White folks, if they can't accept what black and indigenous folks want to do with this land, go back to Europe. Go back to fucking Europe. I'll go back to Europe. If people say I have to, right? All right. Good stuff. Now that we clarified that, and yeah, we should all have that. We should all share that position, because the sooner we unite all of our brain power, the sooner we can make some actual progress. We don't want to go back to a time where black workers, where marginalized workers are excluded from unions. And no, that wasn't just because of the capitalists. That was because the workers themselves were racist. And
Yeah,
yeah,
they
the
it was a
union,
lot, and it was a time too, like the black codes too. Not only were they couldn't join unions, they couldn't even work in places where white folks was even working as well. They have to work in certain places. So black codes was a big one. It was a very big one, and we're in 2024. Why is we still dealing with this? Why? Why are we still dealing with union and or the South is not being organized? Why are they just, the South is just ugly. It's just very ugly as far as getting members organized. I've heard stories at these panels on the last few days, and I've seen a lot of Southern, workers from the South. I even seen some of them wear the buttons. Um, I know one girl, she she had dropped her button, and before I can even catch her, I said to myself, it was meant for me to get this button, because I'm going to put it on my shirt and support them. So if she walks around and see this button, I'm going to show her, you dropped your button, but it was meant for me to have it. It was meant for me to put it on.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was so many powerful stories, because
Mm-hmm.
the South is
It's
still,
ugly. It's
yeah,
ugly.
it's still the worst place to organize.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, here in Kentucky, we have that same experience where, again, they're coming after lunch breaks. They've criminalized homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
They've criminalized bail funds. And they keep fucking around with my community, the queer community.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep targeting us, and it's not going to end by itself, right?
Yeah.
Labor unions have to be the ones getting involved in politics, and that's why I appreciate what my fellow Southerners and Appalachians are doing, especially in North Carolina, where the black workers are having their own revolution, right? Where they are organizing all the workers that were left behind, and I'm proud of that. I really am. And I didn't want to take up too much space. I just wanted to see who else has a workshop they wanted to talk about from Friday. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just unmute and start talking. Or if nobody has something they want to share, okay, Nick. Nick, there you go.
Hi, my name's Nick. I'm with Starbucks Workers United. On Friday, I went to what's it called? Beating Apathy, Successors of a Secret Organizer. I thought it was really interesting because they were saying that apathy does not exist. Everybody cares about something. Um, and we're all just so like drained from capitalism. Um, but that doesn't mean that like people who you think are apathetic are actually apathetic. Like there's something that people care about. So just try to figure out what that is. And they were saying try to get people engaged by doing very small tasks and then eventually try to get them to be like main organizers, but also respect where people are at and don't just brush people off as like apathetic or evil. Yeah, that's basically it. I thought it was interesting.
Awesome. I love to have Starbucks workers on here because, I and I sort of fangirl over this because I'm on the Solidarity Squad. Anybody who doesn't know, the Solidarity Squad is like customers uniting with Starbucks workers to carry out these campaigns, and we hosted a lot of actions. You know, with DSA, labor, and with so many of these unions, we would go to non-union workplaces, and we would advocate for those workers and empower them to come out and organize with us. And we went to so many Starbucks worker strikes. I joined the Solidarity Squad from the beginning, and I hosted three of those events from from a non-union location in Kentucky, the closest one to me, Danville, Kentucky. And yeah, Danville is actually a pretty progressive place. They're a college town, um, and I'm proud to say that the campus workers there, they decided to contact Ewok back in November, and one of the first things we did was we brought them to the Red Cup Day action. Right, I was their Ewok contact, and they started having all their solidarity, their movement, and that was their first experience getting to picket and talk to people, and really build that cross organizing solidarity. And I brought them to another event in late December for the holiday organizing, and organizing with Starbucks workers. It's a blast because y'all are so fun, young, queer, black, BIPOC. It's and you know how to have fun on the picket line. So hats off to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, as a young queer worker, non-binary, pansexual, I just feel so empowered by what we're doing with Starbucks workers, by Amazon workers, by these young militant workers everywhere. And since I'm on that note, I'll talk about the other panel that I took notes on for Friday. I went to the Collectively Fabulous panel. I forgot what time it was. It's probably probably in the afternoon. But okay. So we had a long conversation about queer Black labor history. Just to begin it, there was this lady who was a lesbian named Miranda Smith, who was organizing with the early tobacco workers in the CIO. You know, when the CIO was not the AFL-CIO. Um, and they were just so inspiring because the CIO was communist at that time. So they were organizing as these black queer communists women, and this was in the 40s. She eventually became the president of the tobacco workers in the CIO. Um, and of course her partner. This is a sapphic union story. For those of you who don't know what sapphic is, it's usually lesbian oriented type of folklore and stories and movies and media. Um, awesome. And they were just so radical. They had all these picket line songs. We Shall Overcome is a picket line song that is wrote out of history. It's wrote out of labor history, but it is labor history. It's not. It's not. A song that was devised by a non-union civil rights leader or student nonviolent organizing committee. SNCC. Um, it was a union song, and it should have been included in labor history, but no, it was just women's history and black history because they wanted to leave it out. Well, guess what? It's not left out anymore. It's there. We heard from sex workers. We heard from strippers United, Strippers United in NoHo, California. I think it's called NoHo. I know the campaign has NoHo in it. Um, we heard from an organizer named Velveeta, and this is a queer labor leader. There was these pictures from the campaign. There was like this this very large condom that they had stretched over a senator's house. It was incredible. I'm sorry. I get too hyped for this. Or maybe it's just the right amount of hyped, but I can't control it. And they showed that imagery. I'll have it up on Twitter. I'll have it up on the socials. Everybody can follow me at Unionize Amazon KY. Um, and then patron passage panties that were on the strippers picket line. um, they had so many different poses. A slip and slide at the strike. They were basically entertaining the customers as an incentive for the customers not to go through the picket line, not to cross the picket line. Like if you got people strip teasing for you outside, you don't have a reason to go in, right? You're just satisfied with that. And they had the strip shows and they collected money from that, just as they would inside, if they had continued a shift. But a lot more radical and a lot more fun. And they had sinking ship. They had the sinking ship memorabilia that was for hashtag hot labor summer. In the summer of 2022, 2023, that good stuff. They had these OSHA themed parties where they were out in just construction hats and the stripper the stripper memorabilia. And of course, this whole picket line was queer. And sexual liberation coded. Just amazing, because if you don't have solidarity with sex workers, then you don't have a place in this movement. You don't. I'll just say that. So much media and community and so much artistic creativity went into these campaigns. You just have to check it out. Just like with the Starbucks workers campaign, but albeit a lot more lewd. We're not children, all right? So and to finding your queerness in the labor movement means examining how you as a queer person are exploited more than these cisgender heterosexual people, right? Because queer folks are a lot more compassionate, so much more compassion and creativity, sexuality, sensuality, professionalism, because you're working twice as hard to get the same fucking position. All right. And so many people know what that feels like. Right. You have to work twice as hard just to organize a union, because when I was outed to my coworkers by management in rural Kentucky, it was not good. People started avoiding me like the plague. They started woke baiting me. Woke baiting mean like the equivalent of red baiting back in the day, but for intersectional people. And so you got to figure out how you're exploited. And there was an actor, somebody who was in WGA or SAG-AFTRA. I didn't quite figure out which one they were in, but this actor was telling us how, they were saying that them as a queer person in the media were being exploited specifically because they were queer. They weren't exploited in the same way that cishet people are. They weren't exploited in the same way that just anybody else wouldn't be. But especially black queer folks are exploited doubly because having more oppressed identities, of course. And but they unified their co-workers around those specific issues. And so there was another union there that was Howard Brown Health Union, and they're based out of Chicago. So locals, and they were providing making their company provide health care to marginalized communities, these poor black neighborhoods in Chicago. The company wanted to fight them tooth and nail not to do it, not to open up free clinics, but labor power forced them to do that by showing up for everyone's struggle. And of course, Howard Brown is like a majority black staff at that medical center, but the management are like 60% white. So they're there to keep folks down, right? They're there to do that. And so, that kind of concludes a lot of my takeaways for the queer worker struggle at that panel. And God, I mean, as a queer person in the South, I don't have many places where I can be myself. I don't. The first Pride event I showed up to in summer of 2023, that was like the first time I could be myself in the open with so many people, and it was profoundly empowering, right? And that's just what I say, because as a queer worker in the South, you kind of have to suppress your own identity if you want to organize, and it's such a sad situation. Um, it's so bad for my mental health. I already have ADHD that was ignored throughout my childhood, throughout my upbringing. I never got any tutoring or anything for that. I almost failed through school. And then I have so much trauma from my childhood, all that stuff. And so everything just compounds into bad habits that start because of depression that I experienced, the isolation I experienced of being an Amazon organizer who had to deal with unlawful termination and had to struggle with a toothless labor administration, being ignored and not having any resources. So, God, I gotta hold back tears right now. So Saturday. Let's move on to Saturday. So a lot of stuff happened on Saturday, but first let's talk about the workshops, okay? I'm gonna open this space up and hold space for somebody else. What did you do Saturday? Anybody, just go ahead and speak. Everybody else stay on mute. I'll stay on mute and we'll hold space for you. Go ahead,
On
Nick.
Saturday, okay, thanks. On Saturday, I went to, I don't know what it's called, a health and safety workshop with Starbucks Workers United and the same strippers union. It's the only strippers union in the United States. Also, they have that panel and the panel that you mentioned, the Collectively Fabulous. They have the entire panel, both of them on their Instagram. If people wanted to watch the whole thing on Instagram, it's Equity Strippers NoHo, like North Hollywood, Equity Strippers NoHo. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I want to go into it, but honestly, you should just watch the whole thing. um, it was interesting because she talked about how, unfortunately, if they were to speak out about wages, no one would have taken them seriously. But if they talked about like not feeling safe, people would take them more seriously. And yeah, it was kind of dark. Like she talked about how someone complained that a worker complained that like a man was making her feel unsafe. They didn't do anything about it, and eventually she was like murdered by him. There's just like a lot of very basic things they were asking for in their contract, like kick people out for touching them without their consent, and then basically when they got I don't know if they got a contract or not, but like very basic stuff, and that would be turned against them. So the owner of the club would kick people out for giving like consensual high fives to the dancers just to, I think it's like, oh, like the union is making me do this. Just like, and the examples go on, but that would take forever if I explain them. But yeah, it's a great panel. Everyone should watch it. Um, I also went to TikTok organizing. That was really interesting. They talked about how this is a great way to reach Gen Z. And honestly, it was a little sad just hearing how true everything was. Like, just you got to keep it really short. Like, no one wants to listen to anything. Like, put it onto tell your audience to put it on 2 times speed. Um, and then try to use humor, education, follow trends. Yeah, it was really interesting. And I will let someone have the floor now.
Anybody can go for the Saturday panel. Wait, I wanted to circle back. I'm so sorry, but I've just been discombobulated and haven't got a whole lot of like time to recover from this. I just wanted to host this call while it was still fresh on everybody's mind. Friday night is when the Palestine rally happened, not Saturday. And so we have a comrade here who was a victim of police brutality for Saturday. I mean, for Friday. Their name is Simone. They're a fellow non binary person. And they made this sacrifice for Palestine and to organize. It's like one of the greatest sacrifices you can make. Simone was arrested, and then we forcefully unarrested them. All right, we stopped the police from getting them into the convention center where they were trying to lead Simone because we were not letting them escape. We pulled Simone away from their custody, and then they eventually, took Simone back into custody. Not before somebody handed them like a lawyer's information. Um, and of course, unfortunately, the very bad people at the conference, like the mayor was there, allowed the police to come into the conference and get Simone. So we went and interrupted the mayor's speech while Simone was back into police custody to demand that they freed Simone. We interrupted everything. All right. So that's what solidarity is. Okay? We got to fight for our comrades because an injury to one is an injury to all. Right? Let's not ever forget that. And Simone, let's hold space for you to share that experience.
Thanks, everybody. Do you mind if I smoke? Okay, cool. All right. So I'm Simone. I work at a Walmart. I'm a Ring of Fellow organizer. And of course, I support labor for Palestine. So I just attended the protest as normal. And unfortunately, the police decided to interrupt. And that was unfortunate, but not surprising, I don't think, to literally anyone there. I think what was surprising is that being surrounded by professional organizers and activists and workers and human beings of this like planet, um, that we were actually able to like feel and take back our power, because I don't think that everyone is used to that exercise, and I don't think it was a planned exercise. but I think that it was extremely well executed, well trained for, you know, like just it, like I just can't thank everybody enough for having my back. Like honestly, like I cannot thank all of you enough because I left that conference feeling more protected and like more honestly more protected than I ever have in my entire life, I think, possibly.
Thank you. And we all very much appreciate your experience and your sacrifice for the cause. We protect us. We defend us. That's how it has to be. And I wanted to welcome Abby to this. So yeah, we circled back. You know, we talked about some of the workshops that we did on Friday. Started to get into Saturday, and then we had to circle back and talk about um, the Palestine rally because I was a little discombobulated and I forgot when the events were taking place exactly, which is understandable. I think all of us are a little bit in the recovery phase from this event. You know, my social anxiety paired with stuff I'm going through and stuff like that. Yeah, it all compounds, right? So let's go ahead and circle back to Saturday and the workshops that we did, and I'll allow anybody to take it from here. We'll hold space for you. Just go ahead and say what you did and what your takeaway from that was, how you related to Saturday's workshops, and um, everything that happened.
May I pick up kind of where I left off? Okay, so first of all, I think the premise is that like honestly believing that none of us and understanding that none of us are free until all of us are free is such a like overwhelming uh I guess message for all of our like sense of solidarity and like where it's guided toward, right? Like where our energy is, like where we're at. Um so for me, my experience Saturday, I tried to like make it to a couple of conferences and I just like I could not. I just like was not in the headspace. Which ended up being fine because I ended up from my personal experience, right? I know that all of these like amazing organizing like workshops were happening and like I can't wait to like catch up on everything and I gathered so much material and all that, but my personal experience was that the level of solidarity that was like extended to me by strangers or like new friends or like just almost every single person that I engaged with on Saturday morning was just like a source of strength and support and like it just in the same exact energy, like literally keeping the same exact energy. I was just like, if like, are you okay? Like, how can I make you okay? Like, if you're not okay, I'm not okay. Like, and it was just such like a source of healing. Um, I think for me, but I also heard from other people who when I said that, when I was like, this is like an amazing source of like strength and healing and like determination, like going forward, like we're gonna fucking free Palestine, like that's the goal, right? Like we're still gonna fucking free Palestine, right? And everyone was like, yes. Like yes, like absolutely. Like just keep fucking fighting. Like just keep fucking fighting. But like making sure first that I was okay. You know what I mean? And that I was like ready to keep fighting, you know, and just like got me back in the game. And I just like appreciated that so much for like we're a team. And that was like very much the energy that I got from Saturday morning, and I hope that other people felt that as well.
That's what's up. That really is. And God, I loved the energy at Labor Notes, and I loved that people had so much compassion for your experience. I that's exactly what I would expect from a gathering like this, from 4,500 or more people getting together to do this. And most of us, we fancy ourselves militants. Um, even TDU, Teamsters for a Democratic Union, they used to be militants, and now they've taken over the Teamsters, and they kind of fucked over a lot of workers on the UPS contract. They're the establishment now, and when you are the establishment, you're not really that militant anymore. And of course, I get it. There's compromises to be made. The Teamsters Union has been falling apart for a long time before they got in. Half of the Teamsters are Republicans, so they have a service-oriented view of unions, which actively, prohibits militantization. Um, so I do get that. I do get that. They've made a lot of concessions to their own membership, um, just like the UAWD did, right? In both of these unions, they still have a lot of old guard within them that can't easily be gotten rid of, right? They can't easily have the power seized from them. And so, you know, um, I guess, every union has a culture of their own, and that's reflective of the culture of each of their individual locals and how much time they spend investing in those workers. Because there's not many unions that have a communist education like the unions back in the day did. And that's something that we're lacking, and that's something that we need to get back to. We need to have these hard conversations to really persuade workers of what is in their best interest. That's why I think independent grassroots unionism is the way forward. That's why I am in the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee. I've been here for 8 months. We had a very big presence at EWOC. More than 100 of our volunteers. All right. And I wanted to share a little bit of our accomplishments. We've helped thousands of workers since our foundation in 2020 as an organization that was started to help workers fight for their health and safety, um, because these employers were letting workers die all the time from this disease that is very much still affecting us. And just to criticize Labor Notes for a second, there weren't enough people masking. There weren't. And that is a choice. That is a choice to not value the lives of your immunocompromised fellow workers, of your disabled fellow workers, of the fellow workers like Black folks who have been proven to be more susceptible to COVID-19 and have worse health outcomes because of um, because of medical discrimination, of trans folks, of queer folks, of all calibers who have worse health outcome. Even cisgender women have worse health outcomes, right? And so masking should have been better enforced. I get that Labor Notes did not want to have the backlash for kicking people out of the conference, but it would have been necessary. It was necessary. I know that they strongly insisted and went the whole 9 yards. They provided masks, but we needed enforcement because in the after parties, Friday and Saturday, nobody was masking. Nobody. So we turned this event just like in 2022, into a super spreader event, and we do not know what the ramifications of this will be. We do not know how many people have COVID right now because of that. So I just wanted to say that piece since my organization started out as a response to COVID. And so we're a militant partnership between the Democratic Socialists of America and the United Electrical Union, who have a history of being independent. They never ever affiliated with the AFL-CIO. And some people might call them the AFL-CIA because of many of the horrible practices they had of getting rid of communist and suppressing revolution in countries that make up the global South, right? And of their oppression of marginalized people here. So, yeah, we pride ourselves on being independent, of being grassroots, of being radical, of being militant, and of mostly being organized. We have few people that are actually staff, um, and most of us are volunteers. Volunteers for the technology team, the coordinating team, all the people who support the organizers. As soon as a worker reaches out through our website, they get connected to the technology team and the coordinating team, and they connect them to the closest worker near them within 72 hours. That is remarkable. If you've ever filled out a contact card for any organization, you know how long it takes if you get a response at all. I've been through this trying to facilitate connections as a union leader in the early Amazon Kentucky campaign, and we were ignored by so many folks. So many organizations just did not get back to us because of how unreliable contact forms are. And so we're well organized. My role there is I am an intermediate organizer, which means I have at least 2 years of experience within the labor movement. Every case that we take, we are paired with our advanced organizer. Our advanced organizer has at least 5 years of experience, and most of the time are an active union contributor, right? Um, there aren't many barriers to organizing with EWOC. It is so entry level, right? If you don't have those couple of years of union experience, they'll teach you. We will teach you, right? We host open-ended workshops for the public. We just released a book that is an organizing manual called Unite and Win. It's over at Haymarket Books. If you need to get the ebook version, it's only 99 cents or $10 for the paperback, right? And that includes our foundational training and everything, right? We had our book launch at Labor Notes, sold a record number of copies, sold so much merchandise. It just means that our organization is going to be on the growth trajectory for a long time. And anybody can join. We can take so many volunteers, and we're actively trying to get volunteers from the South because I am one of the Southern volunteers. I am one of two volunteers in Kentucky. Um, I have had local worker leads in Kentucky, one of which I'm organizing at a campus. Um, that is still active, still going, still ticking, even though a lot of the workers are burnt out from being exploited student workers in their work study program. Um, and I have campaigns as far as Louisiana. I took a campaign in Arkansas. I took on a campaign most recently in Florida, and all of them have their challenges, but especially because I can't go there and be with those workers, right? I can't salt their workspace. So please, if you know anybody who is interested in Ewok, join up and contribute. And we need more workers who are a part of unions to volunteer, because so much of our job is connecting with workers who don't know about their resources and connecting them to those resources and having an active union campaign, or just a militant campaign where they're not actively looking for union membership. They're organizing around issues and leveraging their labor power for things that matter to them. Right? We support workers no matter what industry they come from. If they reach out, they will get support. It's an essential service because we don't gatekeep the way that unions have done. We don't. We just support. Workers lead the way, and we're there to play a mentorship role and as active as a role as we can. And I forgot to shout out, all of our teams are in the background too, supporting us. So on a campaign, if I have legal questions, I send I go to our Airtable workspace, and I fill out a form for our legal team, and our legal team are NLRB volunteers. I mean interns and people who are, you know, workers with the NLRB, and they provide us that legal advice very quickly. We have our social media team. We had Nick, who was on earlier, who introduced himself. My very good comrade that I have known for the better part of 2 years. Who he came there with a plan. Like, he knew who to talk to. He knew all their faces, and he was introducing me to people. He was introducing everybody. Like, I just can't stress enough that we have so many good people working with our organization. There's no sectarianism, there's no gatekeeping. You don't even have to be a leftist to get our support. We meet workers where they are, wherever they happen to be. Even if that means tolerating some views that are not perfect. We don't let workers get away with reactionary views, but we just still try to work with them because it's necessary. So what workers used to do back in the day, if they got pushed out of a union by the progressives, they would go and join the Klan. They would go and join the National Socialist movement, right? And they would actively be against the union struggle. They would collaborate with the boss. The IWW's history is full of archives and fights between that union and the Klan and these reactionary workers who weren't engaged with enough and who felt infringed upon, and that they needed to go and bash the union. And most of those fights were won historically, but some of them were lost. That's real human lives on the line. And those are real human lives that are on the line again today, because we have the government, especially in the South, these governments, actively trying to make unions illegal and speaking up against unions. Like the UAW's campaign is facing government resistance. They just won at Volkswagen. Congratulations. They're gonna win at Mercedes soon. Congratulations. And really, they're picking off on something that they couldn't do in the 60s. Operation Dixie was a failure because they primarily organized white workers. Okay? That's what they did. That's why they failed. And it looks like they're doing it very differently this time. I'm proud. And so I will move on to my workshops from Saturday. Enough self promotion of our organization. Organizing in the South was hosted by the Southern Workers Assembly. Yeah, I should be more familiar with the acronym SWA because I am a member of the SWA, and I'm hopefully going to go to the Southern Workers School that takes place in May. In Raleigh, or is it Charlotte, North Carolina? But it's all about Southern workers, how to organize. Um, but yeah, so imagine organizing as a roller coaster with constant ups and downs. There's so many ups and downs in the South, of course, because white workers are not showing up to the struggles of all the other workers. And if they don't do that, the union's going to be in a rut for quite a while until they embrace intersectionality. We had so many workers there from the South, most of them black, even some of them like immigrant workers who are organizing farmhands, these undocumented farmhands who are struggling. Here's a couple facts about undocumented farmhands. The National Labor Relations Board still protects them. The NLRA still allows them to organize. They have those rights. However, the employer has a lot of leverage, like holding their visa hostage, right? Which actively discourages immigrants from organizing. Um, Saturday, before I even attended any workshops, I went to the Portillo's restaurant workers strike in Chicago. They're organized with the United Steelworkers because anybody can be a steelworker. They opened up their unions beyond their craft a long time ago. They're militant. And those workers are mostly undocumented. And the employer exploits the hell out of that. They keep violating their contract. They haven't improved conditions. And so Labor Notes decided to take 4 busloads of people, 4 busloads of us to go to a Portillo's location, grab a sign, um, and chant in Spanish and in some English and listen to these workers, hear them out, and just such a good rally and such a good rallying cry for us to have solidarity with them. So good. And we can look at most workplaces in the South as a plantation, as a modern day plantation, because there's something that we talked about and that I like to call the Southern aristocracy. These former plantation owners still rule. They're in every form of government, every position of government. They're in they're in the real estate. They're in every industry, and they rule over black workers, over black and indigenous people of color in the workplace. And so that's what we're fighting in the South, because there were no consequences for the South after the Civil War. The military was here for a couple of years or something like that, and then they had to leave. They left because of, Abraham Lincoln did not want to punish the South. And then eventually the Daughters of Confederacy took power, spreading their revisionist history of the lost cause that made it into curriculum everywhere. And of course, former Confederates went to the northern states and took over those states, leaving a terrible legacy that we have to struggle against everywhere. If you've looked at how many sundown towns there are in the United States, there are more of them in northern states. There are more of them in northern states than there are in southern states. So much for progressivism, right? And the next workshop that I attended was organizing dilemmas within the CIO. Um, The CIO, of course, before it was in the AFL-CIO, they had a turbulent history, a turbulent relationship. They left and joined the CIO the AFL-CIO multiple times. But we talked about how radical they were in the CIO, but that we should not get caught up in that radicalism because it was a form of communism that did not see race as important, that did not see sexuality and gender as important. They left out those struggles. So these were white workers who were militant. Some black workers along the way. You know, you had like the founding of the UAW, the Flint, Michigan sit down strike, right? You had so many of these events, but you also had so many of these black workers who had independent unions that merged into the CIO, and the CIO eventually purged them because of how the CIO was working with the government to de-radicalize the unions. If you were black at that time, you were a suspected communist. If you were queer at that time, you were a suspected communist, right? Because, you know, these white capitalists knew that there was a system that treated workers and colonized people better than they did, much better, right? And that's why the CIO did what it did. So the American Federation of Labor, as bad as they were, they still had more black workers. They still organized more black groups of workers. But that's not a reason to support them fully either. You have to critically analyze history. You have to inhale the good shit, exhale the bullshit. As I like to say, to very simplify how I look at ideology and history and all that good stuff, right? And so of course the CIA was rather decentralized and rather bottom up because of how decentralized they were, which benefited the workers that they had until they eventually merged with the AFL and created the AFL-CIO for the final time in like the 1970s, I believe. Um, I actually kind of regretted joining this workshop just because it was very long-winded labor history, and I would have rather done something more productive. But still, it's important. It's still important. Um, Conditions were also so difficult to fight for in workers, to get the masses together because of how spread out the working class was. Because of unions offering benefits the way that they did and fighting for so much, and because of the New Deal and because of the prosperity that the United States experienced, a lot of workers were no longer working class within unions. They were like upper class, even because of how much they were making, right? And so the classes were very spread out. And many of these workers were no longer among the proletariat because they were so much wealthier. They weren't capitalists by any means because they didn't own capital, but these unions certainly did own capital with all of the unions owned plantations in the global south. Unions interfered with the politics of revolutionary peoples in what were called the banana republics, right? So the Caribbean, those places south of the border. The border, the border crossed them. They did not cross the border crossed them, right? That famous and so true saying, of course. They collaborated with all of the governments of the global south, which have historically remained in the hands of the top members of the caste system, the people who descend from Spaniards, right? Decolonization has not really been a reality outside of Cuba. Outside of Cuba, outside of countries that did have a revolution for a short amount of time, certainly Nicaragua. But just because you have black faces and indigenous faces in your movement or in your country, in your political system, does not mean you've decolonized. That's not the way it is, right? Because there are class and race traders, class and race traders, right? They've betrayed the interests of their people for certain privileges um within the system, right? And so that's my main takeaway from the history of the CIO and my other workshop on Saturday. Simone?
Thank you for sharing. I really did feel like super salty that I missed everything on Saturday. And I'm really, really happy to be like in a like room full of people who are also what like decompressing, right? So like mentally, emotionally, physically, like we're like coming back to like normalcy, you know. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh my god, I had a whole nother page of notes.
I love you so much for that. Let's check in with Allison.
Yeah, Allison, you can unmute your mic at any time, and we will hold this space for you.
6 months ago, Bert was away. I put my $3,000 mattress on his bed. He didn't even.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Hold on one
I'm
second,
sorry.
please. No, it's okay. Oh,
Did I
I
have
thought
my
we just
mic
couldn't hear
unmuted?
you very well. I just
Oh
no, no,
yeah.
no, 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 I'm not.
This is the first time I've used this, so I'm not good with technology and all that. I think I tried to turn my camera off, but I still have my mic on.
I'm
Yeah,
great.
I've been trying to listen, but this was my first time coming to Labor Notes, and so it was a really interesting experience. And I was there with the production assistants who were trying to organize, so it was
Fuck
a
yeah.
lot to take in for us. And it was
Oh
me,
yeah.
and I live in Atlanta. We have a production assistant in Chicago, and we had two production assistants from LA who came in. So it's a nationwide effort that we're trying to start. And we're just um, trying to learn as much as we can. We work in the film and television industry.
That's incredible. Can you please share more about your story? Like, what built you up until here? Like, what have you been through? Like, what are your struggles? If you feel like
Um,
sharing.
yeah, I work in film and television. Almost all of our colleagues are all union members. We're like one of the only positions that is not a union position in our workplace, which is very strange. And so we're, of course, the lowest paid workers there by far. So, of course, the most exploited. And I think what really boosted them to really feel like this was the time. I mean, I was always told there's no way that production assistants could like even try. That's a futile effort. Don't. There's no way. It's not possible. But the commercial side of filming, the production department unionized recently and created its own local in IATSE 111, which included production assistants. And that was just such a big, new, radical thing that now I work in scripted with film and television. That it kind of inspired them to say, like, well, if they could do that, maybe that's something we could look into doing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's amazing. That's exactly. Yeah, no, that's so good. Yeah, no, please continue.
And yeah, so we're just looking into organizing to see what it takes and learning about organizing in general. And but it's also very strange because our industry is just kind of different, and we're all part-time gig workers. We work for one production at a time, so that makes it very different than maybe a brick and mortar type of place. And so we're just starting out. We've started this grassroots group. We have an Instagram page. We have a Discord with over 400 members of PAs around the country, really coming together in the for the first time in that way to communicate with each other, because usually we're very disconnected from each other. So just being able to connect with people has been a really great thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. And
What is the name of your group again? I'm sorry to interrupt.
it's cool.
Production Assistants United.
Hell yeah.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Um I was gonna say, like, I did want to like talk about something that everybody needs to do, especially when they watch this call or when they attend any type of workshop or anything like that, right? Um, a lot of organizers have an ego, this egomaniacal complex that comes from actually doing stuff, right? And I mean, they just get too carried away. They think they're the next Joe Hill because they've read Marxist theory. They think they're the next Big Bill Haywood. No, you're not. I'm sorry, but you're not. And you need to stop looking towards these dead men of history because they're dead for a reason, right? Lenin is not going to come out of the grave and save us. Okay? If there was a zombie Lenin, okay, he would not know how to work an iPhone. Zombie Lenin would watch cat videos for a very long time. All right, just so you have to humble yourself, especially if you're a white person going into these black and multiracial worker workshops, right? You have to check your privilege. You have to work twice as hard to make sure you are listening and understanding. You have to take extensive notes. You have to don't be an ally, be an accomplice. Allyship, that's performative. You got to be right up there willing to take a bullet for your oppressed comrades. That's what you have to be willing to do. Like what Simone did, experiencing police brutality for the Palestinians and for the liberation struggle everywhere. Everybody's liberation struggles, right? Especially here on Turtle Island is so connected to the Palestinian struggle. Okay? And yeah, if you are a cisgender heterosexual person going into a queer workshop, you have to humble yourself too, so that you can actually try to understand what we're talking about. And then after the conference, you have to ruminate over your notes. You have to ruminate the whole time. You have to really make sure you fucking get it. Because if you don't humble yourself, you're not going to get it, and you're not going to be a true liberator, right? And that's what I have to say on that. And the experience for me was very, very humbling. Everything I've experienced since I was unlawfully terminated from Amazon, I've been eating a lot of humble pie. I've been eating so much humble pie from being in poverty, um, from depending on the generosity of others, of their mutual aid, of their contributions voluntarily to me, and of having to work with so many folks, right? Having to humble myself every day so that I can be a true accomplice to all of these struggles, to realize the power of my neurodivergent comrades and people, right? And good job posting that link, Allison. That's awesome. I will have all of the links in the show notes and stuff like that because the transcripts on here, of course. But I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I save that. And I definitely have Simone's request for assistance on that MailChimp website. Um, so yeah, that's a long rant from me. And there's a couple more takeaways from the CIO. I had a continued page on the back. Um, Segregation was such a big barrier because, literally segregated, right? You didn't have a way to connect black and white workers because you couldn't like do house calls. You couldn't really go into those communities or else you would face violence, right? So unions didn't backbash against that enough, and so they couldn't organize marginalized folks, people who are actually experiencing and enduring oppression. And so the labor boards were also segregated because black workers, communists, didn't have the access to the labor board. Um, it was shitty. Communists were actually explicitly prohibited from using the labor board, right? It was fucked. And we also had the experience of World War II, where we actually had the most worker power because, and in that workers' power was concentrated in the hands of women who stayed behind because they were not drafted, right? And so the labor boards of the wartime industry were a lot more favorable of workers because everything was producing military equipment and supplies. That's not an endorsement of the military industrial complex. I actually, have so many problems with that, like everybody here. And of course, we have comrades who are in unions who are the military industrial complex. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Halliburton, all these places are unionized and mostly with one union called the Machinist and Aerospace Workers, a business union. They have not done anything except call for a ceasefire. We don't want a ceasefire. We want full liberation for the Palestinian people. All right, that's what we want. That's what leftists want. And the machinists have been more than happy to continue producing killing machines. And that's my rant on that. Um, and there's a couple of books that you can read that were mentioned about black worker struggles. One of them was Hammer and Hoe. I'm not sure exactly who the author was, but the book's called Hammer and Hoe. It's about black workers' labor struggles. And then there's another one called Out of the Coal Fields, which, if you know anything about coal miners' history, it's very near and dear to me as a person from Kentucky. Okay. And unfortunately, the black workers had such a hard time. Such a hard time in the coal industry because black workers would be brought in as scabs. And the white coal miners would inflict violence upon them. That is one way the boss kept us divided. Absolutely fucked. And that's sort of, most of those immigrants, a lot of them were not considered white. However, they sure were acting white. You know what I mean? They sure were acting better than black folks. They sure were. These Irishmen, these Italians, Eventually, because of the influence of the Communist Party, because of the IWW, they would unify with black workers. So much discrimination. One documentary I would recommend, Harlan County, USA. There's a documentary and there's a film version. All right, the film version is obviously dramatized, but the documentary is about the struggle within the United Mine Workers to reform, and also it is about there was a strike in the 70s in Harlan County. The Brookside mine strike. It turned violent. It was a very violent strike. Coal miners got killed, but you saw black and white workers unify. They unified for that struggle. And the only people who were using the N-word were the bosses, the foremen of the coal mine. And the women had a very large role in this strike. Okay, they were ordered to not have anyone on the picket line. Right? The judge intervened and ordered no more than several people on the picket line because it was a public road, so the judge could intervene. The Kentucky State Police were out in full force. So what happened is they formed a women's committee, and the women who were not coal miners, they were the wives and sisters and cousins of the coal miners. They held up the picket line and they were armed. They were armed to the teeth to deter these scabs. And that's part of why that strike that went on for several years in Harlan County was very successful. And that is why the reform movement in the United Mine Workers was successful in the 1970s. Again, Harlan County, USA is that documentary. Please watch it. It is so awesome. Watch the Union version. Like you can, the movie version too. It's exciting. It's great. It's one of the few Hollywood films that depicts unions in a positive light.
It's almost Mayday.
Yes. Is that what you had your hand up for? Speak. Speak.
Literally, just every single fucking labor organization in your area is going to be proud and happy and in the financial position, hopefully, to spread the word about global unionization and about worker power and about freeing all of the people. And that whole consistency of messaging is really the point of Mayday.
Yes.
So, no, but seriously, like, actually, like, just literally any single fucking organization in your area that's involved with labor, like, will have a Mayday event or suggestion or action, and I think the major one is for fucking Palestine. Mayday for fucking Palestine this year. And yes, get involved with your organization for Mayday anyway, just because it's like an amazing show of solidarity and knowledge, right? Like, and education. But also, we need to fucking free Palestine like immediately. So, like, if we can just do it on Mayday, that would be great. And I think that that's the plan. Like, from what I've heard, that's the plan.
Absolutely amazing thing you said there. And I love Mayday. That's so near and dear to my heart. And unfortunately, I was not able to take the tour to Haymarket Square. That would have been so awesome because, like, that inspired Mayday. Mayday was like to honor the martyrs of unions, right? And that's where the 8-hour workday was won. By blood, sweat and tears of workers all of all colors, of all creeds, of all genders and sexualities, right? They have an Emma Goldman statue there. They have a Big Bill Haywood statue there. And the Illinois Historical Labor Society is just so dedicating to protecting that labor history, that labor heritage. Just a huge shout out to them and providing us with the opportunity, though it was limited, the opportunity to go. And God, I appreciate that so much. I do. And
Okay, fun fact. We fucking have Haymarket tours all the time. Like literally just come through, visit some like Chicago museums, whatever, take the Haymarket like thing because it's like right off of Chicago. Like if for any reason you're in Chicago, you can just go and also take the Haymarket tour. Like for the most part, like on most like days or weekends, like they do just do that. That is like a regular one that a lot of the tourist like buses and stuff do. Like for sure, for sure, for sure, you have access to that.
absolutely. And I mean, like the tour is cheap, like $20. $20. Like nothing in Chicago is $20. All right. I was paying $5 for a bottle of water. Fucking bottle of water. Oh my god. I was so dehydrated throughout the conference. Like I mean there was free water at the conference and there was free water at the after parties and beer and all that stuff. Like Friday night I went and partied with the Rail Workers United. Saturday night I was at the Ewok book launch. And let me tell you something about the Ewok book launch and party. It was so awesome that all of the DSA people came to our party. Yeah, that's right. And because everybody loves labor organizers. Everybody does, truly. And that's gonna put us even more on the growth trajectory, of course. But I stayed out so late and did not get enough sleep and was just so discombobulated. Um, but And that's another thing, like no masking requirements at the after parties and people just everywhere throughout the hotel. Like I met up with so many like sort of labor celebrities like Jake and his partner who host the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only labor show. Labor radio show, labor podcast show. They do it all. They do live streaming. They're awesome. They're a couple of awesome young people. Just huge shout out to them. I met Maximilian Alvarez from the Real News Network, from the Working People Pod, who has had me on a couple times. Such a sweet and compassionate man. Um, I'll never forget meeting him, and I'll never forget that Nate introduced me to him because Nate, of course, recognized everybody. Fucking photographic memory or something like that. And he knew I was overwhelmed and had this social anxiety and just discombobulated. He helped me meet everybody. I have an interview soon with Steve Seltzer, who has a labor show. Steve Seltzer's publication was at Labor Video YouTube channel that captured everything that happened at the Palestine rally. So
Oh my god, thank you so much. Can you please send me that information because I've been looking for him.
absolutely, yeah, I'll do that, and I hope they want to interview you. I hope they do. I have a live stream I'm attending tonight to talk about labor notes with my buddy who has a channel, my comrade. His name is Black Red Guard. He's a gay black man from St. Louis, and he's DSA's favorite Maoist, because he's a Maoist, and just overall so great. He taught me so much about the black workers' struggle and how black workers can merge sort of their theory, black liberation theory, with Marxism, but how we have to, as Marxists, put the black liberation struggle first and foremost. If we want to have any allies of other races, we have to put their struggles first. They have to be primary. Colonialism is the primary contradiction that we have to recognize and struggle against, or we will not get anywhere. There's something that I like to call settler socialism. That is where these socialists, they don't want to really prioritize indigenous sovereignty. They don't want to prioritize decolonization. So what they're going to do is they're essentially going to leave the United States intact, make another bullshit promise to honor treaties, treaties that were always violated by the United States governments. I say governments because state governments, local governments, and they just basically want to put a socialist government in power, but without doing anything for anyone who is not white or heterosexual. So, fuck settler Marxism. And I got that term from the Decolonized Buffalo podcast. I am just heavily borrowing because I was educated by indigenous and black folks, right? And they told me the books to go read. George Sakai, Jay Sakai, Gerald Home, Frantz Fanon, um, you know, um, biographies of Huey Newton, George Jackson, who was a Black Panther, who was imprisoned and was a writer. So many people you have to read, and if you don't read anything besides Marx and Lenin and old dead white men, your theory is incomplete. You're running on Windows 98 while everybody else is running on the latest version. All right? So fucking get with it. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Put your whiteness and your privileges in check. All right? And this is also how we're unifying, okay? Because we're prioritizing national liberation struggles, these liberation from colonialism, that means we're working with anarchists. We're working together with anarchists because we're not being sectarian assholes that want to push Marxism on everybody. Right? We just want to have those good faith exchanges and fight for liberation together. There are more indigenous anarchists than there are indigenous Marxists, right? They've created their own theories of indigenous liberations. The Zapatistas, for example, right? The Colombian FARC. All of these Venezuelan communes and cooperatives and all of those things. Simone, after this is over with, I can go ahead and shout out Steve Seltzer right now. They're on Labor Media. That's what their publication is called, Labor Media podcast. Their YouTube channel is called Labor Video. Right.
I'm sorry, it's
And
called what?
Labor Video. How about I do this? I will share my screen. I will share my screen so that I can show them off. You can see my screen, right?
Yep. I've actually spoken with a few different media organizations, and I can actually shout out all of them, but not by name because I was in such a fucking crazy state this weekend. But I also would be happy to shout out the fact that like all of the media organizations who are involved with Labor Notes convention and with the workers, such as me, specifically me, no offense to anybody who didn't get the chance to talk to me. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, like every single fucking media person that I experienced was like so professional, like so incredibly sensitive, like just so like unified in the concept of like really liberation radio, right? Like freedom radio, like just of that was the main message that I received in talking to the media workers, was just that their organizations also represented the same cause as a lot of the labor organizers.
Yeah, I feel you. I just went and found their channel, some labor video right there. Police attack Palestine labor activists in front of Chicago Labor Notes conference, and they got the whole thing on film. They got you getting arrested right here, and then getting freed right in this frame. Yeah. So I didn't want to pull back any memories. This will be shown on a stream tonight. Somebody wants to join. They're very, very late. I don't know where their request to join went. It's gone.
Well, if it was live or whatever, then it's just over, and that's okay. There's probably just a different link now to just view it.
So this labor video project has been around since 1983. That is the correct number for Mr. Steve Seltzer. And yeah, Labor Video Project is what he's called, I believe. Labor Tech, other link, California Coalition. About.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Allison is still on the call. Are
Okay,
we?
Allison, if there's anything you'd like to say. Sorry, Simone, I kinda talked over you. My bad. My bad. Not my man. Stupid captions.
It's cool.
I know a lot of people at Labor Notes, they were not good with pronouns. Like even my buddy Nate just like misgendered me a lot, and I didn't take it too personally, like I know he would have done better if he wasn't so exhausted and doing so much at the same time. But one person who was really gender affirming and got my pronouns right every time was Max Alvarez. Oh my, that was so amazing. It made me so happy. Yeah, Max got it right every time, and that just shows his compassion, right? I mean, Max is one of the few journalists that is going out of his way to continue to cover the struggle of the people of East Palestine, Ohio. East Palestine, Ohio. It feels like everybody forgot about them. They have unions and stuff like that are local, um, pushing for Joe Biden to invoke the Stafford Act, which is for those type of emergencies. It's an EPA act, and it would give everybody free health care. It would give everybody like stipends provided by the government, and it would also clean their water supply and provide them with the federal emergency resources that they need. It would provide them with the resources to relocate, and I'm drinking the water that these chemicals went into. I am. And for people to give up on East Palestine, oh my God, it's terrible. It's terrible. And there's so many places just like East Palestine that have been forgotten about. In West Virginia, there was this DuPont plant that was polluting the water for so many generations. And there was this legal case in the 90s where, this lawyer went and represented people of this community pro bono. And that's how they found out that PFAS, these forever chemicals, were being put in our water supply, in our watershed. They didn't discover it until the 90s when we've been using those chemicals since World War II. That DuPont plant that had a company town in West Virginia didn't get found out until farmers' cattle started dying. And this farmer hired the lawyer and they took on this impossible fight. And we still have very few regulations for PFAS in our water supply. Microplastics are in our blood, in our DNA, in placentas, in your arteries. It's everywhere. And it's so destructive. It mimics hormones in your body, causing you to have these imbalances. Probably causing some people to get diabetes because, insulin is a hormone. Causing so many mutations. It's horrible. And the people that suffer the most from this are the black and brown and women and trans folks who are
Can I ask
having
a
low
question?
health count. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks. Can I ask a question of Allison? If she feels like, if they feel like they want to like engage with this conversation, then my question was where, like, what is the like pressure on the industry that they're in, right? On the media industry, when we're in a time such as now, like literally just in today's world. What is the amount of pressure like where it's such an isolated thing? Because I can't imagine.
Thanks for that question. I'm actually gonna let y'all. I'm gonna let y'all have this discussion, and I'm gonna go and take a bathroom break. So, go ahead, y'all.
Allison, I actually can't hear you.
Myself muted, sorry. Not good with technology. Yeah, the pressure of the film industry is pretty crazy. Yeah, I've worked a lot of different jobs before I ended up here, and it's crazy. Like I've said earlier, we work, production assistants will most likely be the first person in on set. You could come in 3.5 hours before general crew call and also end up being the last person out. So, I mean, when we fill out our contracts, we work minimum 12 hours a day, and the crew will generally work 12 hours a day. But if you're coming in 3.5 hours before crew call and you're staying until the last crew member leaves, they're generally always working more than 12 hours a day. And just the film industry in general is very, very extremely stressful. Um, like I don't know if you've heard about what happened with Alec Baldwin in the Rust case, and that someone had died on a movie set recently. It was 2 years ago, but that's still going to trial. And it's just that's the kind of safety issues that we're talking about just in general every day. It's a very dangerous situation. And the IATSE and the Teamsters, their contract is up in July, so they're in contract negotiations now. So that's a whole nother level of tension that's happening.
I'm sorry,
The
who? The Teamsters?
Yeah, the Teamsters,
With
with the
who?
film
Oh, film.
And
Yeah,
I
I'm
honestly, with
I'm not
film.
following that. Sorry.
So yeah, it's always a lot of chaos and a lot of stress and a lot of things going on all at one time. Like, just for instance, I mentioned it this weekend too. It was a statistic somewhere that assistant directors, their life expectancy was like 57 years, and it recently went up to like 62 because they're regarded as the most stressed out person on set, and all of these people get to retirement age and then just die. And that pretty much just goes for anyone. It's just a common thing we've talked about recently, even just Teamsters that I talked to recently this weekend. It's like people getting to retirement age and just end up dying because their work life has been so stressful. So that's a little bit about how intense and stressful the situation is. And at the end of the day, we start saying things too, like we aren't first responders and we aren't healthcare workers. We're not like we're making entertainment. No one should be having this quality of life or injury or dying to make entertainment.
Well, of course not. Like you definitely deserve like better safety precautions, but at the same time, the family environment that y'all in my opinion, like what I see is that you're such a close-knit environment is that you do act as first responders. You do act as hospitality. You do act as,
And
fucking
we
wet
have an
nurses.
actual,
Like
yeah, and it's such a crazy environment. Like we have a medic on standby. I was telling people this weekend too. Like what other industry other than the military or professional sports has a medic on standby 24/7 in your workplace at all times? Like that's how crazy it is.
exactly. And I think
And
that that's
then
what
like the medic has to stay on set. So when someone is catastrophically injured, which happens a lot, um, the medic stays on set, and who's taking this injured person, who's accompanying this injured person to the hospital, riding in the ambulance with them, dealing with the paperwork, dealing with the whole situation of what's happening with this person, contacting their significant other, and talking to production and relaying all this. It's a production assistant. And I've had people like my friends and my coworkers have had to do this themselves with someone, a horrific accident on set, and then they're the one thrown into the situation where they have to, like the lowest paid person, the person with the least experience, is given this huge responsibility. And that happens like that's just one example of how this happens all the time.
I'm so sorry. Like I'm so sorry that those events even happen, right? And that's like a whole safety issue, first of all. Secondarily, um, as even just a Walmart worker, like that's a team. Like you need a freaking team. And the fact that your staffing is so low is like repulsive to me, even as a Walmart worker. Like you have insulting levels of staffing even compared to like a Walmart
Yeah.
super center. And
Staffing
if you
minimums is something we definitely like is a hot topic. And the fact that you end up doing multiple jobs and you just have all this work, and we end up doing work that's covered work for other union positions, like that shouldn't be happening.
the cool thing about that is that the union positions that you know of will be happy to send a letter to the company to tell them how wrong it is that they don't just staff your role better and give you like the five different union positions that you ought to have, because if they were hiring union, it would be at least three people on crew. You know what I mean? And that's not an excuse. That's all I'm saying. Do you need any help with anything?
Um, I know just met up with my other PA organizers, and they're trying to rally some people to get into some of these, like the EWalk organizing classes the workshop that they have coming up.
And I believe there's another one also coming up, a separate one. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to think of something. I'm still kind of brain dead from this weekend. It was a lot to take in. Actually, I haven't made it all the way home yet. I drove up to Chicago from Atlanta, and I'm stopping in Indiana right now to visit some family.
Right on. And I know, just based on the vibe, that your employer probably does not provide resources for self-care. Are there any resources that you think you and your coworkers need access to?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they can use any help they can get. It's a pretty toxic situation. Like we're trying to have like meetups for Production Assistants United and a couple of production assistants. I made a Facebook event and they saw it and they're like, "Oh wow, we should go to this event." And it's, not highly structured or anything like that. It's like, "Oh, we're just gonna have a meetup and casual conversation." And it starts at 2 o'clock and goes to whenever, just casual meetup. So they were a few minutes late and they showed up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we felt like we were gonna get yelled at because we weren't here exactly at 2 o'clock." It's because it's just so ingrained. Like one of the things that's constantly drilled into people, it's like on time is late. Like you can't even be late. Like if you show on up on time, you're late. Like you have to show up to work early when you're not even on the clock and not even getting paid. So yeah, self-care is definitely something we need help with. I mean, the most basic things of just like being able to stand up for yourself to say things like, "I need to go to the bathroom. I need a bottle of water because I'm dehydrated." These are things we work or like normal conversations we have all the time. And it's not even just the production assistants, even the actual union crew members struggle with this kind of a thing too.
Luckily, you all have each other, and there is strength in numbers. And I fully believe that the minute that you're open to asking for help, you will like fully receive it in droves from your coworkers. And I hope that is the case. And if it's not the
That's what I
case,
say. There's a lot of us and there's strength in numbers, and we get discounted for being the youngest and inexperienced and all of that. But I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot of us.
exactly. No, seriously. And younger and experienced is why you cannot have that type of work environment and why that is more dangerous and
Yeah,
harmful.
and
So, yeah, that's not, no, that's the boss's talk. And don't just, if I can give you one piece of advice, please, it's to keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing exactly what you're doing, and keep doing with
yeah,
what your coworkers exactly what you're doing, and just it will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And we all believe in you. And please reach out
thank
to
you so
all of the
much.
other labor organizations for help. Please, 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 just like send them email like, hey, like give us money or show up here or like this is what my boss is doing. Like literally, just please, like we are here for you. And I'm so sorry that it's such a small industry and that's not fair at all. But Walmart workers are behind you, and we happen to be the third largest army in the world. So,
That's
like, we got your
amazing.
back. We got your back. So please just reach out to Walmart workers the next time that your bosses say that you can't have water because we stand behind you firmly, 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 firmly.
Thank you. It's great to hear we have allies. Like, I guess we probably know it, but now we really have been feeling it after this weekend, and that's really going to keep us going.
Same. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having this.
Is there anything else that you like felt like sharing? I think this whole thing is like still being recorded. I'm probably gonna dip out, but I just
Oh, are you still there? I think I lost you.
yeah, I
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just if there was anything else that you felt like sharing. I'm not sure how long this like discussion is going to go, but I was like about to dip. So I was just wondering if there was any other messaging that I could caption or capture whatever from you. And also if you had shared um I'm going to share my contact info, Allison, in case you also want to reach out and we can talk later. I'm going to put it in the chat. But I just wanted to ask if there was anything else that you felt like you wanted like recorded before the end of this messaging.
No, I think I can't think of anything.
Your story is very powerful and captivating.
Thank
You
you.
know, your union, you will win your fight. You will. It's inevitable at this point. The labor movement is growing so large. It is.
It's great because I heard so much negativity when I first started out.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. Workers do have a lot of apathy. On you know, yeah, that's a bad word, apathy, because everybody has something they care about. They just
I feel it was a lot
need,
of misinformation also, and
yeah,
just
of
not
course.
educated.
It's our job. It's our job as unionists to first and foremost be mutual aid and community organizers, because if we don't build a strong foundation and a strong community in the workplace where the workers are looking out and providing for each other's needs and providing for the community and really getting what they want out of life, a contract is a pipe dream that can go up in smoke at any moment. Amazon workers, Starbucks workers, no contract for years and years. There, throughout labor history, there's strikes that have been done for over 10 years, like a decade of strikes, right? So, what do you think kept them going between that time? What kept them motivated? It was community, it was mutual aid, it was providing for each other's needs. A lot of the time, they didn't even have strike funds. There's no strike fund that can last that long, right? So, they really have to be a community. And they really have to organize these carpools, these babysitters clubs, these food pantries, these potlucks, these barbecues, these rent parties. It is all entirely essential. Um, every union should almost be required to start a chapter of Food Not Bombs and engage with their community that way. Like it should be the law of the organizing world, you know, is to get involved in it that way. Because we are all so sick and tired of service oriented views of unions. Think what you can do for your union, not what your union can do for you, right? It's what you can do for each other when you show up and you have compassion for your fellow people, right? And I suppose anything that you can do, like sex workers have a history of forming so many different workers cooperatives. That's something I learned at Labor Notes. Is there are so many sex worker cooperatives out there, and that's something we missed in the labor movement. Like we could have started cooperatives, we could have started communes, so that we could provide for two of the things that hold everybody back: resources and housing, right? If you have a workers cooperative for your union, you don't have to care about the leverage the boss has. You can ignore that, because instead of a strike fund, you have a workplace, and you're producing, right? You're actively producing and you're self-sufficient. If you have a commune, then your organizers have housing, and now you don't have to worry about homelessness while on strike. The material needs are always going to be the biggest barrier to organizing. the material needs that your boss has captive, right? They're holding you hostage economically. And so that's what we need. Other countries, they have social programs that allow them to go on strike and stuff like that. We don't. In most states, you still can't even get unemployment if you're on strike. California did that, which is good and gives us something better so that you don't have to exhaust your strike funds so quickly. And in other countries, you have health care if you're on strike. Um, and that just allows them to hold out. People ask why we don't have protests in the US like the French do. Did you pay attention to Black Lives Matter? First of all, right? Um, but the French can do what they do because they are provided for by their government. They don't have to really negotiate for healthcare or any of these things. They just get it. One of the most impressionable things to me when I was like 19 years old, um, was the Gilets jaunes protests in France, the yellow vest protests that were going on, which had a lot more open confrontations with the police. I remember seeing this video where this protester, this rider, was on a fishing dock, like a boat dock, and he had these boxing he had these boxing gloves on, and he was sparring with the riot police and winning. He was pushing them back. It was amazing. Oh man. That's also sort of like what drove me to like the black bloc anarchists at that time, is because like that's who was leading those Gilets jaunes French protests, right? That's who was leading the Hong Kong protests. It was anarchists and regular people and unions that are normal for where they're at. They're like just slightly left of center left, you know? A lot of the stories of service workers kind of remind me of another fact that I learned at Labor Notes. Wet nurses. So nurses who like have to sell their milk and stuff like that. They used to be segregated also. And black women who were wet nurses, they would get paid a lot less for their milk than white nurses. To the point where some of the radical unions at the time were these black nurses, these black women nurses who were, fighting to get paid the same for their milk, right? And that was something interesting. And the organizing the South panel that we had Saturday, um, that was mentioned. That was mentioned, and golly gee, it's another thing to be furious about, right? Another injustice. Just like in Kentucky. In Kentucky, most of the plantations were breeding plantations. I said breeding, not reading. Oh God, stupid captions. Um, yeah, it's just gonna continue to say reading, whatever. But these plantations, they were essentially just to continue populating more slaves, and so they would force the slave men onto the slave women. Um, Very horrible. Um, Something so crazy, right? And but let's another point that they made is that even in like Jay Sakai's book, The Mythology of the White Proletariat, um, the real first proletariat in the U.S. that was the slaves. Like the original kind of union organizing per se were slave revolts, right? Because it was, these workers were so communal. It was almost like they were having a union because of what they were fighting for. They were also fighting to not be slaves, of course, fighting to not be slaves. But then after they got out of slavery, they had a plan for that, a plan to secure, a living, to secure a living as free men and women, right? That was that's the earliest labor history in the U.S. was the people who were brought here as slaves. Very, just everything at Labor Notes was so profound because of how intersectional it was this time around. Very profound. You even had disability justice workshops. Amazing. Although, obviously, Labor Notes was not a safe event for disabled folks. Very regrettable. Also, to sort of speak to Simone's experience a little bit, Labor
Yo,
Notes, Labor Notes published that they did not want the mayor of Rosemont to attend. They published like a magazine um, note
cool.
headline that they did not want the mayor there.
Interesting,
That
because
leads
they
me to think
sponsored
about
him, right?
how,
But didn't they actually host him?
yeah, I think,
Can I ask a separate? Can I just totally sidebar or something?
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry to interrupt, but like honestly, like this is something that has been bothering me. Um, because I am like ADA friendly. Like I use the big bathroom so that I can like crouch over easier. Like nobody asked, right? But that's what it's like to have a disability that's like an invisible one. And again, nobody asked. But one of the like hardest experiences that occurred like on Friday, for me, is it cool if we like talk on this, or do you want to like talk privately later about it?
Yeah, go ahead. We are here and we are going to hold space for all of our disabled comrades because
Right on, right on.
absolutely.
Okay. Well, so as I was getting like cuffed, I like looked over and I had my jail support like right in front of my face because they were beautiful people and they showed up immediately. And they were like, "Hey, like how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." And they're like, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "I'm okay," and they're like, "Are you okay?" Like it was just the constant check-in for me the entire time that I was like detained or whatever. And so like aside from that, like to highlight, I guess, like the power that I felt when I like proclaimed into somebody's like phone cam, "I have an invisible disability, like you need to be careful with my joints."
Yeah.
Um, what? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said yeah. I was just
Oh hell yeah. Well, so the problem that I found with that was that the cops did immediately what I thought the cops did, which was that they used my disability against me. And this isn't something that I've spoken about, um, like, to, um, like, everyone yet, but I do feel like it's super important to express is the fact that they, like, proceeded to exploit, um, my disability for harm. Like, I do think that that is like an important intersectional conversation about fucking ACAB. Like, I really, 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 really do, is that you need to protect yourself, like, in all forms, and protect each other in all forms, you know. And I am still learning and growing, but the disability movement or the accessibility movement, you know, is so outrageously powerful at this time that I assume that it scares the cops as much when I tell them that I have a fucking disability as it would if I told them that I was the president of the United fucking States. Because yes, accessibility fucking issues, inter fucking sectional issues, fucking racial issues, fucking queer fucking issues, like fucking all of our fucking issues, working class fucking issues are empowering as fuck. They're empowering as fuck. When you use them.
I love that musical note you did there. But yeah, it is so profound that the disability struggle should absolutely be everybody's struggle. So if you are an able-bodied person, you need to humble yourself at all times because you will eventually be disabled. You will eventually be disabled, or you might experience a disabling event, particularly because of your employer. And your employer might fight your workers' compensation. They might violate the Americans with Disability Act. And the Equal Employment Opportunity Association, or that governing body, they are very toothless, just like the NLRB. Um, they can actually enforce stuff, unlike the NLRB. Um, but it's not good. I had to deal with them. Um, the disabled advocacy work that I did was on behalf of my girlfriend and of Amazon workers, particularly her, because um, she had been injured at Amazon and had to fight tooth and nail for her workers' compensation. She had to endure medical discrimination, um, doctors thinking she was doing drug seeking behavior and giving inadequate healthcare, inadequate prescriptions. And these things, they could have gotten really bad. They could have become disabling. I don't want to be too specific, of course. And and so that really lit a fire under my ass for the organizing campaign to advocate for our disabled folks and our folks who were going through trouble with accommodations and workers' compensations. And I had the privilege of organizing with this group, this nonprofit, as a volunteer, Amazon Connection. It's called United for Respect. They're not so good these days.
Hey,
They're not
can
so
I
good these days.
can I interject with a different shout out for ADA?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I have a family member who is recovering from substance abuse. And when I requested time off, um, my store was going to think that they were allowed to refuse it. And that is a story that I've heard from family members and individuals with substance abuse leave over and over and over and over and over and over. And that is one of the very first ones that I think that I personally would like to address, is that if there is a substance use problem, automatically, please understand that just like your third trimester of pregnancy, it's automatically considered under ADA. It doesn't matter if you've worked there for 12 months. It doesn't matter if you've worked there for enough hours. It doesn't matter if you are something about freaking national bullshit. Like, none of that fucking matters. If you're a worker and you have a substance abuse problem in your immediate family that you need to address medically, or you have a pregnancy in the, third trimester that you need to address immediately, like, you automatically qualify for ADA. And that is one of the many, 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 many rights that I think that people in America are not exercising, like, due to just, like, honestly, like, lack of um like training, I guess, or like information, possibly translations, whatever, like, but lack of information, and also lack of access to those benefits. Like, they block you from the benefits on purpose. So when we address all of those issues together, I think that that will be like a very core elemental foundation for human rights in the workplace in America, in my opinion.
That that is excellent, and yeah, that's something that employers every time every time they discriminate against a pregnant worker, they are violating the ADA, and so many times it goes unreported because these pregnant folks do not know. They just don't know what to do. Um, and so with one of the profound things, and I sort of like, I have to wrap up soon. I really do, because I'm cutting it close. I have to meet with Black Red Guard like 15 minutes early so we can get our planning. And with United for Respect, they were involved in the Amazon struggle very heavily. They were doing such a good job.
Did you hear about their
Um,
union busting?
yeah, the union busted their own staff, and those staff were organizing Amazon workers, and those staff were also um, they started this investigation that the Senate was doing into Amazon's disability discrimination, their accommodations discrimination.
If I
Um,
may interject, it was probably the workers who did that, but that's just hypothesis.
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
You don't need an organization to represent you when you file a complaint with the EOC or the Human Rights Department of your area. You don't need representation. So likely it was an individual worker or multiple individual workers, and likely it was multiple individual workers.
That's true, and I do have to give credit because I do know somebody. Her name is Kathleen. She's a Amazon worker who has really, really done so much for the disability struggle. And I know that Kathleen wouldn't want me to publicize what she's done very heavily, even though, I would think that they deserve a limelight. But, a shout out like this that's discreet is good. And yeah, um, United for Respect betrayed all of us when they did union busting. That's um that's fair to say. They betrayed their own staffers, they betrayed the union, they betrayed us. And the union wasn't even a fighting union. All that came out of it was they got to pick the replacements, and sickening. But our greatest action was that we collaborated with these regulators, got so many investigations done, so much progress on that investigation. We even went to DC, Washington, DC. The organization had accommodated these disabled workers, and we took them and got them in front of the regulators. We got them in front of the Congress people, and we advocated, right? We told them our stories. Of course, I got to tell them a little bit about my union stuff. I was not there for it to hold space about me. It was for my girlfriend. It was for the person in my life who was a struggling disabled, not disabled, but workers struggling with accommodations and workers' compensation, right? And These workers are leaders in the disability struggle, and they still are continuing to organize independently. And just bless them for not giving up. Seriously. And I met some of them, some of the ex UFR staffers, and some of the disabled Amazon workers like Kathleen at Labor Notes. They were looking for me the whole time. They said it was so hard to find me because like Messenger was not working. So they were saying like next time we're gonna make shirts, I'd say, where's Matt? Because you know, I absolutely made such good friends with these folks. And shout out to our boy from Illinois, Drew Dazinskas, who has been leading a multifaceted Amazon campaign at several warehouses using his political experience and labor experience to organize fighting groups of Amazon workers. Just shout out to him because I did not get to meet him at the conference. I did not get to meet Reverend Ryan Brown. So many people I did not get to meet this time around. And gosh, I just wish I did, but then again I met so many other people. So I can't complain. But yeah, that betrayal hurt from United for Respect. It almost hurt more than it hurt from the Amazon Labor Union, which was the union that my comrades and I trusted. We trusted them so much. Like we could have went with the Teamsters. We had that option. The Teamsters wanted to work with us, but we were a Democratic union and we held a vote. We weighed the pros and the cons of affiliating with those unions, and we decided to go with the Amazon Labor Union because that is what everybody in the movement wanted. They wanted a successful union, the union that managed to beat Amazon at that warehouse, JFK 8. So we made a mistake and we made it together. And sometimes that is what democracy is all about. You risk making the mistakes together. But yeah, we had the potential to be the first Amazon Teamsters union. We did. And I have beat myself up over it all the time. And a lot of Teamsters just like don't talk to me because of that. That's not nice. So it was a very isolating experience. And being ostracized for speaking up about the corruption in the ALU was a very ostracizing experience. And something that was also humbling at Labor Notes is nobody knew who the hell I was, which was fine because in as an organizer, we really shouldn't be taking credit for too much, and it actually was working against our movement the fact that I was the only one speaking to the press. Nobody else was willing to reveal their identities and be public with the press because folks in rural areas, rural Kentucky, they're just not outspoken individuals. They're fearful. Um, you know what I mean? And so, it really did look bad that the press were only talking to me. It was sort of like a Chris Small situation where like he became the face of the Amazon movement, and then I sort of became the face of the Kentucky movement, and I did not like it. I wanted my coworkers, I encouraged them to speak to the press, and the press, got some of their stuff in anonymous investigations, but not not publicly. And at least the public pressure and the publicity, it did help me a lot in my unfair labor practices case. I think it bought me a lot more time at Amazon, or I would have been fired much earlier. Because in a union, you have to be loud and proud. You cannot afford to be secretive. You can't, because you have to leave these breadcrumbs. You have to gather so much evidence, and it's hard to gather evidence unless you can establish a theory of retaliation. The theory of retaliation being that you did this, you have documentation that you were doing this, and that you and your workers were doing this together. Okay, remember, protected concerted activities means that you are not doing something alone. It means you and your coworkers are doing something. If you are doing it
Right.
alone, if you are doing it alone, it is not protected under the labor board.
Right. So, that's why I think that one of the most important assets to a democracy run grassroots, union drive or organizing drive, right? Even if it's not for a union, even if it's only for fair pay or whatever, safety, whatever, a fair drive for workers. What I think personally is one of the most important aspects of that is like fucking experienced, like seasoned, if possible, committed external organizers. And I know that nobody wants to hear that outside union, it has all the say or is taking your money or anything like that. But in a grassroots drive where everyone is inexperienced, even the experienced ones, because they're obviously like have never organized in an inexperienced shop before, right? So even if they were experienced before, even if they're fucking salting, it's still an inexperienced shop. And I think that one of the honestly greatest assets that I personally have had in my shop is experienced organizers who can relay like similar situations, applicable laws, like really, really, really helpful, like pamphlets, like honestly, like in the moment, like suggestive action, all of that, just like the options, right? Like list the options for you, because as a grassroots organizer, especially one who's like low commit, which I feel like many wage earners organizers are kind of low commit, it's really important to have like an extremely committed external organizer. Like they don't have to make or break your drive. Like that's not the point. But it's to give you the advice that they would give like their own child, basically. And that type of solidarity as like a mentor is irreplaceable. Like I have not, like you can read as many books as you, but you don't know how to give that information to your coworkers effectively. You don't know how to execute it even for yourself as a committee effectively if you don't have those like personal like triumph stories of experienced organizers. Like I cannot give enough credence or having an organized um, committee seek the advice of uh, any experienced organizer. It doesn't have to be in their area. It doesn't have to be in their industry. Like none of that matters. Just somebody that they trust, like a therapist, right? They don't have to like specialize in like labor trauma. They can just talk to you about like what it means to when somebody looks down on you. You know what I mean? Like they can just speak to you on your level because they've been there. And I cannot talk that up enough. Period.
Absolutely. And when it comes to extended, experienced external and committed external organizers, I feel like I was so lucky to have the mentors that I did. I really do have to end this with this final remark, but that's sort of what we're trying to do at Ewok. Is we're committed. We don't set these goals and we don't gatekeep the way that so many unions do, where they have like development goals that you have to reach, or the union will stop sponsoring you. That's an experience I've had with unions, is that they want to micromanage your campaign and stuff like that. And because Ewok is not a union, we're able to not do that. We're able to just have as much patience and as much time with the workers as we need, and that's really
Yeah,
profound. And that's
agree.
why a lot of nonprofits used to be involved with union organizing, is because like worker centers too. They're also nonprofits, and they are able to have patience with workers that unions often are not. And
Any community, any community organization.
yeah, absolutely. We need to get so many organizations involved, and I
Human
would like
rights
to
are
say,
labor rights. Like that's the freaking point.
yeah, yeah, they're protected. They're protected under the United Nations protects labor rights.
Human rights, yeah, our labor rights, exactly. Like that's why we have to free Palestine. Like that's this whole freaking thing. Like it's this whole freaking thing. Is that we all need to freaking free each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I thank Simone and Allison for both staying on the call for pretty much the entire duration, and
Thank you.
giving
I
your
would like
input.
to. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying thank you for staying on the call and giving your input.
Thank you, honestly, for everything and for like hosting this like totally fucking random thing. Like I love it. Allison, I would love to hear more from her if she had like something else you wanted to mention.
Put some things in the chat. I know you were talking about medical issues and things like that. I know someone from Labor Notes started a Signal group chat about those kind of issues, so I put the link in the chat.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to save that link as well. And yeah, I need to save that to my Google Keep notes. There's something there.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good information there. You guys are gonna want to join that group.
All right. Well, I'm just going to export a couple of these links that you sent real quick. It's always so handy to have that little Google Meet tab.
And I'm
And
going to go ahead, if I may,
yeah, go ahead.
and put out a call for more and more and more harm reduction resources, um, and reaching out to find them, but also making them more accessible to everybody, because they are so universal. Like especially here, like just please, 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 please push harm reduction along with our
Yes,
right
you're correct.
to like
Mhm.
save Palestine. Like please, it's so important right now, and I can't thank you enough for doing so.
Absolutely. And like I say, what we say commonly in mutual aid spaces is that if you're not also doing harm reduction, then you're not really doing effective mutual aid. And I really do have to leave it off with that. I got like a minute before I have to meet up with this dude. So thank y'all again for being so great and for being so open and sharing your experiences. All right. Goodbye. Take care, and yeah, have a good rest of your week for sure. Have a swift recovery from labor notes if possible.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine, and we'll leave it with that.